Magnetiscope, an inexpensive innovation to facilitate practicing and perfecting arthroscopic shoulder reconstruction surgery. No expensive arthroscopic equipment, no surgical assistant needed, and used with any laptop computer. Presented by Stephen J. Snyder and Matthew M. Crow from the Southern California Orthopedic Institute. Good afternoon. I'm Steve Snyder from the Southern California Orthopedic Institute. I want to demonstrate how we set up the Magnetiscope cameras when we're using them with the fast dome simulator. We call them the Magnetofast cameras, and how we hook them up to the computer and then use them for shoulder surgery. This camera is a special tubular camera that has a focus ring on the hub. It's 500 times magnification if it's up real close. We won't use it at that, and it has a light control built in. We plug the camera into the laptop through a standard USB port. And let's just go over how we set it up here with the model. These models are manufactured by Sawbones, and they are made so that an individual surgeon can practice these complex rotator cuff and labral repair situations using their own laptop without the need of an assistant. And the way this works is the system was designed with a donut-shaped magnet held in place on the dome using thumb screws in prefixed holes. You'll see the dome has multiple portals that can be used for any type of operation. The way the camera holder works is Sawbones has created a steel ball that they bored a hole through. The one that we'll be using today has a hole that's made specifically for the Magnetofast camera. There's also one made for the arthroscope, and they have an arthroscope available that will work on your computer with the USB port as well. But we put the magnet and the ball together. I tell you, it's real important that you don't have your finger in the way, because the magnet neodymium is so powerful that it'll crush your fingertips. So you can see how it snaps in place, and then by moving it, it'll control the position of the camera. Now the camera is identified with the name Super Eyes and a little red dot on the top. We use that as our orientation line, and that goes in the uppermost part of the steel ball. And we can tighten the cross pin just enough to hold it in place. The rotator cuff piece is held with a hex socket that goes on the hex post, and it slides into position. Now this model is ultimately adjustable so that you can turn by turning the black ring. You can rotate the humeral head. If you want to do a biceps tenodesis or work on the posterior side of the cuff, you can just turn it to the position that you like. Notice there's an arrow on the bottom. That arrow indicates the side that the camera will be on. In other words, we wouldn't want the camera that way. We put it where it fits with the arrow. The other thing that's important to recognize is this has a tightening mechanism that allows tilting. So if you want to tilt the humeral head in a certain position, you can loosen it, and then this works like a bicycle seat. In other words, you tighten it up, you can pull it out, and tighten it some more. So it's important that that be tight. For our purposes today, we'll just set it like that. The final thing is these two thumb screws allow you to slide the model. And this works equally well for the glenoid piece as it does the humeral head. But it's really important to have your model in the perfect position for visualization and operating, and it's so adjustable that you can make that position perfect. It takes a little time. Now we'll clip the dome in place, and notice we have both an opaque dome for the more advanced surgeons and a clear dome if you want to take a peek while you're doing the operation. And again, we arrange it so the Super Eye's name and the little red dot are above. Now we've plugged our USB into the USB port, and let me show you how we open this. In order to open a movie recording, we go up to the file and then open it, and the first thing we see on the top is new movie recording, so we click on that, and up comes the recording box. Now my computer set up to recognize the Super Eye's camera, but if yours is not recognizing the Super Eye's camera, that is, it doesn't come up on the QuickTime, you go to just take your mouse cursor down to the record area, and right next to the record button is a little twirly arrow. You click on it and it has the list of all of the video cameras that your computer is set up to see. So the one that goes with this Super Eye's camera is called SMI. The other one I've got here is my FaceTime camera, so I don't want that. Okay, so that gives me my picture. Now I'm going to also go back to the top to View, and I'm going to go down to the second choice, which is Enter Full Screen, and I'll click on that, and then that gives me a full screen view of my field of surgical field. Now again, watch what happens when I rotate the model. I can rotate it to bring different parts of the anatomy over. When I rotate the scope, it'll hold, the magnet will hold the scope precisely where I want to put it. And so I like to have a field that gives me a view in all directions. Now, we'll next have to choose the appropriate portals. And the way I do this is I just take a clamp or a rod and I place that into the model, and I find what would be an appropriate portal for stitching. This one's pretty good. And so I'll choose that portal, and I'm using what's called dry dock cannulas. I think any 7mm operating cannula can work here. We'll put that one in, and then we'll take this one and we'll determine the portal that's going to work best here. And that looks like that's going to be a fine one. And so we'll put that portal in, and now we're ready to do our rotator cuff surgery. Now, one other thing that I want to show you on this is when your students are ready to record the surgery so that it can be reviewed by the teacher, they simply drag the mouse down to the record button and hit record, and that'll record the entire operation from that point forward until they stop the recording like that. And that'll allow you then to save the recording when you turn off the program. It'll give you an option to save that recording on your desktop, and you'll have the whole thing available for review and grading or whatever you want to do. Arthroscopic rotator cuff repair using the Magnetiscope in the Sawbones Fast dome with a rotator cuff shoulder insert. So I'm going to put this screw in the middle hole, and I'm going to screw it down, and because it's a model I'm not going to put it all the way under the bone. I'll leave the horizontal line a little bit proud. Of course in real life I'd put it well into the bone so I could get some bone marrow flow out around the anchor. But for ease of removing the screw later on, we'll do it this way. Now I removed my screwdriver, and you can see the anchors fixed nicely in the bone. Now, in order to do the operation the way we like to do it, we're going to move the sutures apart like that, and we're going to take one suture from the posterior side of the anchor, and then I'm just going to clip my little grasper right here so it's in good position. Notice I don't have to move the camera to see what I need to see, but if I want to get a little different visualization, I can move it and the magnet will hold it in place. Now I'll move those sutures out of the way, and again, to do a triple loaded anchor, we'll put the first stitch a little bit posterior to the position of the anchor, so that when we get these passed, we'll have the three sutures in a nice array. We'll carry the shuttle out the back, and then we'll load the shuttle here with our green suture, which is the first one we're passing. The suture goes in the eyelet of the shuttle, and then I hold both ends of the suture, and as I back my stitcher out, the suture then is carried through. Now I'm going to get the partner of this first green suture, so I'll pull up on all the sutures to get them lined up, and I'll go in and select the partner, and then I'm going to put this outside the cannula in what we call a suture saver, and this is the same way we do in the operating room. So we'll put in a guide rod, we'll remove the cannula, leave the guide rod in position there, and then we'll take our first suture saver, which will be the green colored one, and we'll make our sutures just about even length, and in the eyelet of the loader of the suture saver, we'll pass both green sutures. We'll hold the end while we pull the sutures up and in, and then we'll run that down to the top of our rotator cuff. Now notice there's two positions we can put this in. If we hold one suture saver, or one limb of the suture saver goes by the anchor. If we hold the other limb, it will go up on the top of the cuff, and it'll be out of our field of view and not block the anchor. Okay, then we'll use our guide rod to lead our cannula back into the joint here, and then we'll remove the guide rod. Now we'll do the second suture. We'll push these out of the way so that we can get a good look at it, and here we can see that the second suture will be this purple colored one, and we'll choose that one with our crochet hook and carry it inside the cannula. Sometimes if we take both of them, we'll just pull the other one back, and we've got our suture in position then. We'll take our grasping tool, put it in place. Again, we can secure it right on the edge of the cuff if we like, just so that it's ready to go. And we get our suture shuttle loaded, and we'll push these sutures out of the way, and we'll do our second stitch right here about 6 millimeters away from the first. We'll send our shuttle in the cuff, take a bite of the shuttle, and carry it back through. On the back, we'll load the shuttle with the suture that we've got positioned in the cannula, and we'll again hold both sides of the suture so it'll follow the shuttle through. We can watch as it comes through there and out the front. And then we'll pull the sutures so they line up, and then we'll capture the next suture in line, which will be this purple one. And we'll once again put it outside the cannula over a guide rod. We'll take the sutures like this, and these will go in the yellow suture saver. We always try to do the suture savers in the same order, and the way I remember it is like a stoplight. Green is the first one for go, yellow, and then red. And we have two more that we'll use for the second anchor. One is purple and one is black. And black, I always remember, is the last one because it's by the biceps in the front of the shoulder, black for biceps. We hold the correct end of the suture so the shuttle, or the saver, suture saver, goes up on top. And we'll put our guide rod and our cannula back in, and we'll do the third stitch. Again, always pull up on the sutures so they're lined up nicely. We'll go down and take our index suture. We'll put our grasping tool in position, and again, we can just hold on to the cuff like that if we like. We'll always like to have a clear view, so I will just knock that suture out of the way. I can move my camera a little bit if I like. Measure 6 millimeters away from the last saver. Go through with my stitcher, and then release my hold on the cuff and remove the shuttle out the back. It's again loaded up. Just pop the eyelet like that. Insert the shuttle. Hold both ends of the suture. Carry the shuttle through and out the front. And once we get all the slack out of the system, we'll retrieve the partner of our last suture. Let's just go ahead and tie. Typically we would put both anchors in. Of course, we'd have our side-to-side stitches done if we were planning to do that. But in this case, we'll just go ahead and tie our sutures. Now, typically we tie from a lateral portal. So what I'm going to do is move this cannula to a little more of a lateral position, and then we'll be able to tie in a similar fashion as we do in surgery when we tie through the lateral portal. So we'll hook these two sutures and carry them up, and we'll identify our post, and we'll go ahead and tie. Now, to tie through this lateral portal, we'll take the post suture, which is the one that's coming through the cuff. We'll clamp it, identify it. We'll pass down our knot pusher to be certain that we've got the correct one, and then we'll tie. And we'll tie a sliding locking knot. Our preferred knot is called the SMC knot. We'll tie it up, snug it up a little bit, and then just pull on the post suture, and you can notice how that'll bring the knot down to the top of the cuff. We'll reclamp, we'll lock the knot, and then we'll tie 3 additional half hitches alternating the post so that we get good locking permanent knots, and we don't have to worry about those coming loose. We'll do our first knot. First one goes under on the secondary post. We switch back to the primary post. We can identify that because it has a knot pusher on it. We'll tie that, and then the third one, another under, goes over them, and we'll push that down, slide it down into position, pass point, lock that, and then we'll cut the suture tails. And we're using a guillotine type suture cutter. We put it on, turn it at a right angle, slide down and cut the knot. And then we can continue tying the other 2 sutures, and that will finish the repair for our first anchor. Of course, we could do all 3 anchors. There's place for 3. We do the side-to-side stitches as well. Let me show you one other thing we can do. By turning the model, notice how that brings the biceps tendon into position here. And we can do a biceps tenodesis if we like, right here. The way I do it is to put a suture anchor in and then pass my suture through and around the biceps as well as the rotator interval tissue 2 times. We call that an Italian loop. So we go through the interval tissue, through a healthy bite of biceps, take it out the back, take that same suture and pass it a second time through the interval tissue, through the biceps and out. And then we have a double looped suture through the biceps, and we tie it with a Revo knot. That's 5 alternating half hitches, and that gives us a real strong biceps tenodesis. So that should serve as a demonstration for the rotator cuff using the clearer cannula and the Super Ice camera with a QuickTime Player video recording, and we'll now demonstrate the glenoid surgery.